When I was cleaning out my late wife's workshop, I found an envelope marked for my husband. Don't show our son. Inside was a key to a bank safe deposit box and an address. What I found there changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Good day, folks. Name's Howard Winters, 65 years old, and I've got a story that might sound familiar to some of you out there. Please stick around till the end. You might learn something that could save you from what I went through. I'd been married to Dorothy for 41 years. Met her at a church social in 1982 in Dayton, Ohio. She was helping with the bake sale wearing a blue dress and had flour on her hands. I was just a construction foreman then, rough around the edges, but she saw something in me worth fixing. Dorothy was like that. She fixed things, not with hammers and nails like me, but with patience and love. We built a good life together, raised our son Carl in a modest house on Elm Street. 3 bedrooms, small workshop out back where Dorothy made her crafts, and my Ford pickup in the driveway, nothing fancy. I worked construction for 35 years. Started as a laborer at 18, worked my way up to foreman by 30, then site supervisor until I retired at 62. Dorothy taught elementary school until her knees gave out from all those years standing in classrooms. We were comfortable, not rich, but we never wanted for anything. Our house was the kind where neighbors knew each other's names and kids played in the street until dark. Dorothy's workshop was her sanctuary, organized like a precision toolbox with pegboards outlining every tool, mason jars sorted by button colors and thread types, a workbench that was always clean despite constant use. She made quilts, wooden toys, pottery, beautiful stuff that I thought was just a hobby. Always had orders from church ladies and neighbors, but I figured it was pin money for her little extras. Dorothy passed on a Tuesday morning in February, heart attack. No warning, no lingering illness. One day she was there making me coffee and asking about my plans to rebuild the back deck. Next day she was gone. The paramedics said it was quick. She wouldn't have suffered. Small comfort. But I held on to it. Carl and his wife Beverly showed up for the funeral, of course. They live about 3 hours away in Columbus, but something felt different about them during those few days. Cold, maybe. Like they were already mentally cataloging what they'd inherit instead of grieving their mother. Carl kept asking about paperwork and getting things organized. Beverly made comments about how big the house was for just me, how I might want to think about downsizing. It was 3 months later in May when I finally got around to cleaning out Dorothy's workshop. Couldn't bring myself to do it sooner. Every time I walked in there, I could still smell her lavender hand lotion and see her sitting at that workbench, humming while she sewed. She'd always kept it organized like a professional shop. Everything had its place, labeled and sorted. Tools hung on pegboards with their outlines drawn in black marker, spools of thread arranged by color, fabric scraps sorted in clear plastic bins. I started with her desk in the corner, old oak piece that had belonged to her grandmother. Top drawer had the usual stuff: scissors, measuring tape, receipt books from craft fairs. Second drawer was full of patterns and instruction manuals. Bottom drawer seemed empty at first, but when I pulled it all the way out, I felt something taped to the back. Plain white envelope with my name written in Dorothy's careful handwriting for my husband. Don't show our son. I sat there in that dusty workshop for a long time, holding that envelope. Afternoon sun was streaming through the windows, highlighting dust motes floating in the air like tiny spirits. The workshop still smelled like wood stain and fabric softener, Dorothy's smell. I could hear our neighbor Helen working in her garden next door, the sound of her hoe scraping against rocks. See, in the month since Dorothy died, Carl and Beverly had been circling like vultures. Started innocent enough, Beverly calling to check on me, asking if I'd thought about downsizing, mentioning how the house was probably too much for one person. Carl would call and mention how stretched they were financially, 2 kids in college, mortgage payments eating them alive. Then it got more direct. They offered to help me organize Dorothy's paperwork, said I shouldn't have to handle all that legal stuff by myself. When I said I could handle it myself, there was this pause on the phone. You know the kind when someone's not happy with your answer, but they're trying to figure out how to push without seeming pushy. Beverly started talking about a financial advisor friend of hers, someone who specialized in helping widowed people manage their assets. Carl mentioned that his buddy knew a lawyer who could help me understand my options for estate planning. Every conversation had this underlying current of them wanting to get their hands on Dorothy's and my finances, not directly, of course. It was all presented as concern for my welfare, help with things I supposedly couldn't handle alone, but I'd been handling our money just fine for 41 years. Dorothy did the books because she was better with numbers, but I wasn't some helpless old fool who couldn't balance a checkbook. I didn't open the envelope in the workshop. Something told me to wait. So I went inside, made a pot of coffee, and sat at my kitchen table where Dorothy and I ate breakfast every morning for 41 years. The table still had her coffee ring stains on the wood. She never used a coaster despite my gentle nagging. I traced one of those rings with my finger before opening the envelope carefully, like it might explode. Inside was a handwritten note, brief and to the point like Dorothy always was. Below that, a small brass key attached to a blue plastic tag and a slip of paper with an address written in her neat script. First Merchant Trust, 4480 Claremont Avenue, branch manager Eugene Mitchell. The note said, "Howard, there are things I should have told you sooner. Everything in this box is yours alone. Please speak to Eugene Mitchell before you speak to anyone else, especially Carl. I love you. I wasn't brave enough to tell you while I was alive. DA safe deposit box." Dorothy had a safe deposit box I knew nothing about. I didn't sleep that night. Lay in our bed, my bed now, staring at the ceiling, running through everything I thought I knew about our finances. We had our joint checking account at First National, modest savings account with about $15,000, the life insurance policy I'd already filed that paid out $50,000, everything accounted for, everything ordinary. Dorothy had always handled the books because she was better with numbers than me. She could spot a billing error from 3 pages away and always knew exactly how much we had down to the penny. But now there was this key on my nightstand, and Dorothy's words kept echoing in my head. I wasn't brave enough to tell you while I was alive. Dorothy, who never backed down from anything, not the school board when they tried to cut her art program, not the insurance company when they wanted to deny coverage for my back surgery, not the neighbor who let his dog tear up our flower beds. Dorothy needed courage to tell me something that scared me more than anything else in the letter. Got up at 5 a.m., made coffee I couldn't taste, and sat with that note until the bank opened. The morning light made everything look different, sharper somehow, like I was seeing my kitchen for the first time. The ceramic roosters Dorothy collected on the windowsill, the magnet collection from our anniversary trips to different states, the grocery list still stuck to the refrigerator in her handwriting. Milk, bread, Howard's favorite cookies. She'd written that list the day before she died. I thought about Carl during those long morning hours. My boy was 43 now, broad-shouldered like me, but with soft hands from his office job selling insurance. As a kid, he'd been sweet, really sweet. The kind of boy who helped old ladies with groceries and always remembered to call on Mother's Day. He'd worked summers with me on construction sites during high school, complained about the heat but never quit, learned to use tools the right way. But something changed after he married Beverly when he was 28. She came from a family that used to have money. Her father owned a car dealership that went under during the recession, left them with debt and a house they couldn't afford. I suspected she married Carl partly as an investment in his future inheritance, though I'd never said that out loud. Not even to Dorothy. Over the years, I watched Beverly reshape my son. His priorities shifted from simple pleasures, fishing trips, barbecues, Sunday dinners at our house, to constant worry about money, status, keeping up appearances. He stopped calling just to talk. Now he only called when he needed something or when Beverly prompted him to check on estate planning. 3 weeks after Dorothy's funeral, he'd already asked me 4 times about my long-term financial strategy. He used phrases like that now, business speak he'd picked up from Beverly or her friends. Asked if I'd updated my will, whether I'd considered consolidating assets, if I needed help understanding my options as a widower. Each conversation felt like a job interview where I was being evaluated for competency. 2 weeks after that, Beverly had called directly. Friendly voice, concerned tone, asking how I was adjusting to living alone. She mentioned casually that their financial advisor had suggested that older widowed people often benefited from professional guidance, that managing money alone could be overwhelming. She offered to set up a meeting just to review my situation, make sure I wasn't missing anything important. When I politely declined, saying I was managing fine, there was that pause again. Then she mentioned that their advisor specialized in protecting assets for people in transition, helping them avoid mistakes that could impact their children's inheritance. The word inheritance hung in the air like smoke. By 8 a.m., I'd made my decision. I was going to that bank alone. Not with Carl, not with Beverly, not with any of their helpful friends. I showered, shaved, put on my good khakis, and the blue button-down Dorothy always said brought out my eyes, and drove to First Merchant Trust. The bank was one of those old-style buildings with marble floors and dark wood paneling, the kind where people spoke in hushed tones and the tellers wore actual ties. I'd driven past it hundreds of times over the years, but never been inside. It felt like a place where serious people handled serious money, not the kind of place for a construction worker and his elementary school teacher wife. I asked the young woman at the front desk for Eugene Mitchell and watched her expression change slightly. Not dramatically, just a small shift in her eyes that told me she'd been expecting this conversation, like she'd been briefed. "Of course, Mr. Winters," she said. "He's been waiting for you. Let me tell him you're here." Eugene Mitchell came out to meet me personally instead of sending me back to an office. He was about 60, trim and silver-haired, wearing a crisp white shirt and burgundy tie. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, and he had the careful manner of a man who dealt regularly in other people's private matters. "Mr. Winters," he said, "I'm very sorry for your loss. Dorothy was a remarkable woman. Please come back to my office." His office smelled like leather and old paper, with diplomas on the wall and family photos on his desk. He closed the door and offered me coffee, which I declined. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt like I'd swallowed a brick. "You knew my wife well?" I asked. "She opened the box 12 years ago, in March of 2011, he said, settling into his chair. "Came in regularly after that, sometimes twice a year, sometimes more. We'd talk about her crafts, your construction work. She was very proud of you. You know, mentioned every time how hard you worked, how you'd built your life together from nothing. 12 years. For 12 years, Dorothy had been making quiet trips to this bank, and I'd never known. All those Saturday mornings when she said she was going to craft fairs or visiting her sister Carol, some of those trips had been here, to this marble-floored building where she was building something I couldn't even imagine. She said you'd come eventually," Eugene continued. "Said you'd need time to grieve first, to find your feet again. She knew you well. What's in the box?" I asked. "That's for you to see. Are you ready?" The safe deposit box was larger than I expected. Eugene led me to the vault room, a windowless space with fluorescent lights and rows of metal boxes built into the walls like a mausoleum. He used his key and mine together to open box 247, pulled out a metal container about the size of a shoebox, and set it on the table in the center of the room. "I'll leave you alone," he said quietly. "Take all the time you need. Just press the button by the door when you're finished." I sat there for a moment before opening the lid, trying to prepare myself for whatever Dorothy had hidden from me for 12 years. The metal was cold under my fingers, and I could hear the ventilation system humming overhead like a distant engine. What I found inside made me sit back hard in the chair. First was a ledger, bound in brown leather like an accountant's book, filled with Dorothy's neat handwriting, page after page documenting investments made starting in March 2011. I recognized some of the names: Vanguard mutual funds, Fidelity accounts, a few individual stocks in companies like Johnson & Johnson and Coca-Cola. Conservative stuff, the kind of investments a careful person makes when they want slow, steady growth. Each entry was dated and detailed. March 15, 2011, minus $500 into Vanguard S&P 500 fund. April craft fair income. June 3, 2011, minus $300 into Fidelity bond fund. Quilt commission from Mrs. Patterson. Page after page of small investments, each one carefully recorded, each one building on the last. The final page showed a running total updated in Dorothy's handwriting just 2 months before she died, $255,000. I read that number 3 times, then a fourth, $285,000. More money than I'd made in some years when construction work was slow. More money than we'd ever had in our checking account at one time. More money than I'd imagined Dorothy could accumulate selling quilts and wooden toys at weekend craft fairs. Second item was a manila folder containing bank statements for accounts I'd never seen. The statements showed Dorothy had been much more successful with her craft business than I'd realized. She wasn't just selling a few items here and there for extra spending money. She was running a legitimate operation. Regular income from craft fairs, online sales through something called Etsy, commissions for custom quilts that sold for $300, $500 each. The statements showed she'd been routing all this income into separate accounts, then systematically investing portions of it while keeping enough liquid for business expenses and materials. The account addresses were listed as a P.O. box I didn't recognize. She'd been having the statements mailed somewhere other than our house. Third item was another sealed letter addressed to me in Dorothy's handwriting. This one was longer than the note I'd found in the workshop. I unfolded it carefully, my hands not quite steady anymore. "My dearest Howard," it began. That's how she started letters when she was being serious about something important. I won't share every word. Some of it's too personal, too much between a husband and wife. But the heart of it was this. Dorothy had been watching what happened to our neighbors over the years. She'd seen Helen Morrison get talked into selling her house and moving to assisted living after her husband died, watched Helen's kids take control of her finances for her own good. Within 3 years, Helen was broke and her children had spent everything on their own debts and luxuries. Dorothy had also been watching Carl and Beverly. She'd seen the way Beverly talked about money like it was something to be managed and controlled rather than earned and respected. She'd watched Beverly pressure Carl into buying a house they couldn't afford, taking on debt for appearances, living beyond their means while expecting help from family. The letter described specific conversations Dorothy had overheard during family visits. Beverly asking Carl about our estate planning, wondering out loud why we lived so simply when we could probably afford more. suggesting that older people often needed help managing their finances. Dorothy had heard Beverly tell Carl that his parents were probably sitting on more money than they let on, that it was normal for older people to be secretive about assets. So Dorothy had built this nest egg quietly, systematically, over 12 years. She'd taken her craft income, which I'd never really paid attention to, and turned it into a significant investment portfolio. She'd done it not to hide money from me, but to hide it through me, to create something that would belong solely to me after her death, something that couldn't be claimed or challenged or slowly whittled away by well-meaning family members who thought they knew better. I've watched too many widows and widowers lose control of their lives, she wrote. Their children take over their finances, their housing decisions, their independence, all in the name of helping. I won't let that happen to you. This money is yours, Howard. Use it wisely, use it well, but most importantly, use it as you see fit. Don't let anyone tell you that you're too old to make your own decisions. The letter was signed with her full name, Dorothy Jean Winters, and dated just 6 weeks before her heart attack. I sat in that vault room for a long time after reading her letter. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and I could hear the muffled sounds of the bank conducting its business beyond the thick walls. I thought about 12 years of Saturday morning trips that weren't really about craft fairs. I thought about Dorothy quietly building a wall of protection around our future, brick by brick, investment by investment. I thought about Carl and Beverly's phone calls, their gentle suggestions about my need for help, their concern for my welfare that always seemed to circle back to money and assets and inheritance. Finally, I photographed every document with my phone, put everything back exactly as I found it, and returned the box to Eugene. I asked him to note in the bank's records that only I had access, and to flag any attempts by anyone else to access it. He nodded like he'd been expecting this request. Your wife was a smart woman, Mr. Winters. She protected you well. Driving home on Route 35, I understood what I was dealing with. This wasn't just about money. It was about what kind of man I intended to be, minus the one who gets managed by his own family, like some senile old fool. Or the one Dorothy trusted when she wrote those letters. The one she'd spent 12 years preparing to protect. That afternoon, Carl called. His tone was casual, but I could hear the edge underneath, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Dad, how are you holding up? Beverly was wondering if you'd thought any more about getting some help with Mom's paperwork. Her friend Patricia knows this estate lawyer who really knows his stuff. Estate lawyer for our little house and my construction pension. I appreciate the concern, son, I said, keeping my voice steady. But I've got things handled. Are you sure? I mean, there might be things you're not thinking about. Tax implications, beneficiary updates, that kind of thing. It's pretty complex stuff. Complex. Like I was too simple to understand my own finances. I'm sure, Carl. I'll call you if I need anything. I was already dialing Nancy Palmer before Carl hung up. Nancy Palmer had a small office above Henderson's Hardware on Main Street, the kind of place where everything was slightly worn but everything worked. She was 63, sharp as a new saw blade, and had handled our wills 20 years ago when Carl was still in college. More importantly, she'd been Dorothy's friend since high school. I trusted her completely. I laid everything out on her desk, photos of Dorothy's ledger, the bank statements, the letters. I watched her read through it all, her lawyer's mind cataloging details, asking pointed questions about dates and amounts and Carl's recent behavior. Dorothy was smart, Howard, she said finally, tapping the photographs with her pen. This is all legally yours, clean as a whistle. But what you're describing with Carl and his wife, that's not a legal threat yet, but it could become one if you're not ahead of it. We spent 2 hours together that afternoon, building a strategy like planning a construction project. Foundation first, then frame, then finishing work. Nancy would handle formal probate on all assets, including the newly disclosed ones. With full documentation, everything would be transferred into my name only. The investment accounts would be consolidated under a financial advisor, Nancy recommended, a straight-talking woman named Patricia Gibson, who specialized in helping retirees protect their assets. Most importantly, we'd create a formal record that I'd sought independent legal counsel, had been fully advised, and that no other party had influenced my decisions. Documentation that would stand up in court if anyone tried to claim I wasn't competent to handle my own affairs. Over the next 2 weeks, I executed every step methodically, like laying concrete. Prepare the ground, mix it right, pour it level, let it cure properly. I met with Patricia Gibson, who explained my options without trying to sell me products I didn't need. I signed documents at Nancy's office, each one building a legal wall around Dorothy's gift. I consolidated the accounts piece by piece, moving everything into my name only. I did all this while continuing to answer Carl and Beverly's calls warmly, listening to their helpful suggestions and saying nothing about what I'd discovered. Let them think I was just a grieving widower stumbling through paperwork. Beverly figured it out first. Should have expected that. She was always the sharp one in that marriage. She called on a Wednesday evening, and the fake sweetness was gone from her voice, like paint stripped down to bare wood. Howard, I heard from someone that you've been visiting banks and meeting with lawyers. Carl and I feel we should be involved in any major financial decisions. After all, these are family matters. Family matters. Like she had voting rights in my life. Beverly, I said calmly. Dorothy named me executor of her estate. I'm handling things appropriately with legal counsel. You're welcome to review the probate filing when it becomes public record. 20 minutes later, Carl called. He wasn't as controlled as his wife. His voice had that tight quality it got when he felt trapped. Same tone he'd used as a teenager when I caught him lying about where he'd been. Dad, you're being secretive. Mom would have wanted me involved. I have rights as your heir. I'm not dead yet, Carl, I said quietly. And neither is your mother's will, which names me as sole beneficiary. There was a pause long enough for me to hear him breathing. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. We know about hidden assets, Dad. We know there's more money than what was in the will. If you're not going to be reasonable about this, we're going to have to question whether Mom was thinking clearly when she set up these accounts. Mental incapacity? They were going to challenge Dorothy's competency claim she wasn't in her right mind when she built this nest egg. That's your right, son, I said. Nancy Palmer is my attorney. Her number's in the phone book. Any further communication should go through her. I hung up and sat there for a long time. Won't lie, I was shaken. There's something uniquely painful about being threatened by your own child, the boy you taught to ride a bike and throw a curveball. But underneath the hurt was something harder. The memory of Dorothy's letter. She'd been afraid too. Afraid enough to plan for this exact scenario. She'd still done what was right. I could do no less. The legal challenge came 3 weeks later. Nancy called to tell me they'd filed a petition claiming Dorothy suffered from dementia and that the investment accounts were invalid. They wanted the entire estate redistributed 50-50 between me and Carl. What's our position, I asked. Rock solid, Nancy said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. I've been building our defense for a month. We have Dorothy's medical records showing normal cognitive function right up until her death. We have Eugene Mitchell's testimony about her regular visits and clear thinking. We have the ledger showing methodical, rational investment decisions over 12 years. But Nancy's ace in the hole was something I hadn't known about until the morning of the hearing. Beverly had made a crucial mistake. In her emails to that estate lawyer she'd consulted, she'd laid out her entire strategy in writing. Those emails had found their way to Nancy through professional channels. Apparently, Beverly's lawyer had forwarded them to a colleague who knew Nancy's practice. In Beverly's own words, written before any pretense of family concern, she described Dorothy's accounts as leverage we can use to force a settlement and referred to me as the soft target who won't fight back. Soft target. That's what my son's wife thought of me. The hearing was everything you'd expect: small courtroom, tired judge, lawyers in cheap suits. Carl and Beverly sat with their attorney, looking confident until Nancy introduced Beverly's emails as evidence. I watched their lawyer's face go white as he read Beverly's own words describing her strategy to manipulate a grieving widower. The judge ruled that same afternoon. Petition denied. Dorothy's estate remained exactly as she'd intended, wholly in my name. The judge noted that the evidence of Dorothy's mental capacity was overwhelming and that the challenge appeared to be motivated by financial gain rather than genuine concern. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: pride, not arrogance, just the quiet satisfaction of a job done right. Dorothy had protected me and I'd protected her wishes. Carl called me 2 weeks later. This time, his voice was different, smaller, defeated. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what I was doing. Beverly convinced me that you needed help, that Mom might have been confused. I should have trusted you both. I know you're sorry, son. Are we going to be okay? The question was so raw, so much like the boy he used to be, that I felt my anger soften just a fraction. We're not okay right now, Carl, but I'm not giving up on you. Get some help. Real help. Figure out who you are when Beverly's not telling you what to think. He said he would. Time will tell if he meant it. Beverly and Carl separated 6 months later. She moved back to her parents' house in Toledo. Carl's been going to counseling, learning to make his own decisions again. He calls sometimes just to talk, never asking for anything. It's a start. I kept Dorothy's investment accounts exactly as she built them, adding to them each month from my pension and Social Security. The money gives me independence I never had before, not wealth, just freedom from worry about unexpected expenses or long-term care. On the anniversary of Dorothy's death, I sat in her workshop with a beer and her leather ledger, traced the first entry with my finger, March 15, 2011, thought about a woman who'd carried a secret for 12 years, trusting that her husband would know what to do when the time came. I had known eventually. Dorothy protected me in life and in death. The least I could do was honor that protection. Trust isn't naive when it's built over 41 years of marriage. And grief isn't weakness. Anyone who looks at a widower and sees a soft target has made a serious miscalculation about what loss teaches you. What would you have done? Sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones who see your vulnerability as their opportunity, but real love protects. It doesn't exploit. The strongest foundation you can build isn't made of concrete and steel. It's made of documentation, legal counsel, and the wisdom to trust, but verify every family member's true intentions.